श्री जगन्नाथ यमुना माई की, भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की, कलयुग पावन तारण हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल डिवोटीज, ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल डिवोटीज, ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल डिवोटीज, ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्री गुरु एंड श्री गौर श्रील प्रभुपाद की। हरे कृष्ण। आप सभी भक्तों को नव वर्ष की शुभकामनाएं। आपका ये 2026 आप सभी के लिए मंगलमय हो। आप सभी अपने जीवन में कृष्ण को उतारे, ये प्रार्थना करते हैं। हरे कृष्णा। 2026 की ये पहली क्लास है, शुरुआत करते हैं। We are discussing on chapter 2 and we have completed up to 65, 2.65. So we'll take 2.66 today and 67 also if possible. Yes. मेरे पीछे थोड़ा ये। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकीं कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। गोविंदाय नमो नमः। गोविंदाय नमो नमः। अध्याय 2 श्लोक क्रमांक 66। ओके। नास्ति बुद्धिर अयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शांतिर अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम नास्ति बुद्धिर अयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शांतिर अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम।
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
तस्य भावना
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
वयतः शान्तिर्
न चाभावयतः शांतिर
शान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्
अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम।
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
cāyuktasya bhāvanā
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
न cābhāvayataḥ śāntir
न चाभावयतः शांतिर
śāntasya kutaḥ sukham
अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम। नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शांतिर अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम। नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
तस्य भावना
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
शान्तिर्
न चाभावयतः शांतिर
कुतः सुखम्
अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम।
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
चायुक्तस्य भावना
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
भावयतः शान्तिर्
न भावयतः शांतिर
शान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्
अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम।
बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
युक्तस्य भावना
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
शांतिर
न cābhāvayataḥ śāntir
सुखम
aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham nāsti buddhir ayuktasya न cāyuktasya bhāvanā न cābhāvayataḥ śāntir aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham। हरे कृष्णा। न अस्ति नहीं हो सकती बुद्धि दिव्य बुद्धि अयुक्तस्य कृष्ण भावना से संबंधित न रहने वालों में न नहीं अयुक्तस्य कृष्ण भावना से शून्य पुरुष का भावना स्थिर चित्त सुख में न नहीं च तथा अभावयत जो स्थिर नहीं है उसके शांति शांति अशांतस्य अशांत का कूतः कहाँ है सुखम सुख। अनुवाद तात्पर्य बेसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। मेरे पीछे कराइए। जो कृष्ण भावनामृत में परमेश्वर से संबंधित नहीं है उसकी न तो बुद्धि दिव्य होती है और न ही मन स्थिर होता है जिसके बिना शांति की कोई संभावना नहीं है। शांति के बिना सुख हो भी कैसे सकता है। अपनी बड़ी
One who is not connected to the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind. Without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace?
Purport. The full purport. Anybody else can.
तात्पर्य
Yeah.
कृष्ण भावना भावित हुए व्यक्ति कृष्ण भावना भावित हुए बिना शांति की कोई संभावना नहीं हो सकती। अतः 5वें अध्याय में 5.21 में इसकी पुष्टि 5.29 में इसकी पुष्टि की गई है कि जब मनुष्य यह समझ लेता है कि कृष्ण ही यज्ञ तथा तपस्या के उत्तम फलों के एकमात्र भोक्ता हैं और समस्त ब्रह्मांड के स्वामी हैं तथा वे समस्त जीवों के असली मित्र हैं, तभी उसे वास्तविक शांति मिल सकती है। अतः यदि कोई कृष्ण भावना भावित नहीं है तो उसके मन का कोई अंतिम लक्ष्य नहीं हो सकता। मन की चंचलता का एकमात्र कारण अंतिम लक्ष्य का अभाव है। जब मनुष्य को यह पता चलता है कि कृष्ण ही भोक्ता स्वामी तथा सबके मित्र हैं तो स्थिर चित्त होकर शांति का अनुभव किया जा सकता है। अतः जो कृष्ण से संबंध न रखकर कार्य में लगा रहता है वह निश्चय ही सदा दुखी और शांत रहेगा, भले ही वह जीवन में शांति तथा आध्यात्मिक उन्नति का कितना ही दिखावा क्यों ना करे। कृष्ण भावना मृत स्वयं प्रकट होने वाली शांतिमयी अवस्था है जिसकी प्राप्ति कृष्ण के संबंध से ही हो सकती है।
We'll take up 67 also. इंद्रियाणाम हि चरताम यन्मनो नुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम् वायुर्नावम ivāmbhasi इंद्रियाणाम हि चरताम यन्मनो नुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम् वायुर्नावम ivāmbhasi। एक माता जी एक प्रभु जी ले लीजिए।
इंद्रियाणां हि चरताम्
यन्मनो नुविधीयते
हरति प्रज्ञाम्
तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम्
nāvam ivāmbhasi.
vāyur ivāmbhasi. indriyāṇāṁ caratāṁ. mano nuvidhīyate. asya harati prajñāṁ. vāyur ivāmbhasi. प्रभु एक कोई ले लीजिए. यस कोई प्रभु एक लीजिए कोई.
indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ.
indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ.
nuvidhīyate.
mano nuvidhīyate.
tadasya harita prajñāṁ.
tadasya harati prajñāṁ.
vāyur vibhāsase.
vāyur ivāmbhasi. हरे कृष्ण. इंद्रियाणाम इंद्रियों के ही निश्चय ही चरताम विचरण करते हुए यत जिसके साथ मन अनुविधीयते निरंतर लगा रहता है तत् वह अस्य इसकी हरति हर लेती है प्रज्ञाम बुद्धि को वायु नावम नाव को इव जैसे अभ्यसी जल में. अनुवाद तात्पर्य से भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. जिस प्रकार पानी में तैरती नाव को प्रचंड वायु दूर बहा ले जाती है उसी प्रकार विचरणशील इंद्रियों में से कोई एक जिस पर मन निरंतर लगा रहता है मनुष्य की बुद्धि को हर लेती है.
यदि समस्त इंद्रियां भगवान की सेवा में न लगी रहे और यदि इनमें से एक भी अपनी तृप्ति में लगी रहती है तो वह भक्तों को दिव्य प्रगति पथ से विपत कर सकती है. जैसा कि महाराज अमरीश के जीवन में बताया गया है समस्त इंद्रियों को कृष्ण भावनामृत में लगा रहना चाहिए क्योंकि मन की वश में करने की यही सही एवं सरल विधि है.
हरि ओम तत्सत्. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं. वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललितां श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण मुकुंद. हरे कृष्ण. So we did last time 64 and 65. So we'll have a quick recap of 64 and 65 and then we'll move to today's two shlokas. So what did we understand in 64 and 65? As we know, Krishna is answering to Arjuna's question. Vrajeta Kim has started. Yes. So how does a Sthita Pragya person moves about in his life? That is, moves about in the sense that is the external meaning. The internal meaning is how does he act upon the senses in a controlled way, not in a disruptive way, right? So what did we understand?
Without getting free from raga and dvesha.
Yes.
He strictly follows the scriptural rules and regulations.
Okay. Yes.
As a result, he will get prasad. in terms of purification.
Yes, that is very, very important in terms of purification. Yes. So it's a quick summary of 65, 64. Yes. So 65.
और ऐसा प्रसाद पाने से उसकी बुद्धि स्थिर हो जाती है।
Yes. Okay. हाँ, that is the last point. Yes. ऐसा प्रसाद पाने से उसकी बुद्धि पर्यवतिष्ठते. Yes. Okay. बुद्धि स्थिर हो जाती है. That is.
fully satisfied.
Yes, fully satisfied. हानि रस्योपजायते. कोई प्रकार की हानि नहीं होती है ना. प्रसन्न चेतसो व्यासो. He will be very happy. So important points were like, in recap, like what anything else you remember. So that is why I'll just make up some 1 or 2, 3 points.
एक्चुअली उसका समझ सकते हैं कि पहले इंसान सबसे पहले ज्ञान हासिल करता है, नॉलेज हासिल करता है। कहाँ से करता है? स्क्रिप्चर से करता है, गुरु से करता है।
Yes.
जब उसकी बुद्धि यानी कि चीजों को समझ जाती है तो फिर वो उसमें इंटरेस्ट शो करता है। उसके बाद जब उसका इंटरेस्ट पैदा हो जाता है तो फिर क्या करता है? वो उसके ऊपर चलना शुरू करता है।
Yes.
जब वो उसके ऊपर चलना शुरू करता है तो वो उसकी आदत में बन जाती है ये चीज। जब उसकी आदत बन जाती है तो जैसे लेट्स अज्यूम कि उसकी आदत अगर भक्ति की बन गई है तो उसको भक्ति में मजा आने शुरू हो जाता है और उसकी जो इंद्रियां है, उसकी जो इंद्रियां है वो सारी इसी कामों के पीछे लग जाती है। क्योंकि जिस चीज में आपका इंटरेस्ट होता है
उसी के पीछे लग जाते
उसके पीछे अपनी सारी सेंसेस, अपनी सारी माइंड बुद्धि सबको उसकी पर लगा देते हो। तो वो इसको एक आप स्तर बुद्धि कह सकते हैं।
हाँ.
और उससे फिर क्या होता है? जब वो स्तर बुद्धि हो जाती है और भक्ति आ जाती है उसके अंदर तो फिर वो सबकी सेवा में सबकी यानी कि क्या कहते हैं, सेवा में लगता है या उसको सुधारने में लगता है। खुद तो सुधरता ही है लेकिन दूसरों को भी सुधारने में या दूसरों की हेल्प करने में उसका
ये एडवांस्ड है
हो जाता
और ये एडवांस्ड वर्जन हो गया. अच्छा है.
तो उसका भाव ये हो जाता है क्योंकि
Yes.
और क्योंकि उसका लक्ष्य ये है कि जो भी परमात्मा ने कहा है जो मुझे
Yes.
करना है वो मैं
सबको पहुंचाऊं.
उसके पास पहुंचाऊंगा।
18 चैप्टर में लिंक कर दिया आपने, मैंने बताया भी नहीं था. अच्छा है, चलो हरी बोल.
इसमें एक चीज ये भी है कि इंटरेस्ट वेरीज ओवर टाइम टू टाइम।
हाँ.
तो
Yes.
जब आदतें बनती है, हम जितनी भी हमने लाइफ स्पेंड की है तो इंटरेस्ट वेरी करता जाता है।
Yes.
बस
एक
इसका
उम्र से
मेरा भक्ति
दूसरी.
का है तो कल कहीं और का है तो कल लेकिन
भक्ति से और कहीं मत जाना प्रभु, कहीं और से भक्ति में आना.
लेकिन हमने इसमें इम्पोर्टेंट चीज ये सीखी कि टू कंट्रोल द सेंसेस। आपका अगर इंटरेस्ट कहीं और जगह भटक रहा है तो तपस्या। तपस्या लाइक ये नहीं है कि आप सेवा कर रहे हो, लाइक टू अपने लाइक इंद्रियों को ना कहना है काइंड ऑफ तपस्या। तो ये चीज हमने सेंस कंट्रोल सीखी कि इंटरेस्ट तो आपका वेरी होता जाएगा लेकिन जो चीज आपका इंटरेस्ट है वहां से आपको भागना नहीं है।
Yes.
तो उसके लिए हमें तपस्या करनी है।
So very important. Launching pad, yeah.
Spiritual elevation.
Yes, material regulations are a launching pad for spiritual elevation, because when you are bringing you all to the spiritual level, so material regulations is a launching pad. That is the first stepping stone. So if you start regulations in your life, that is where with vidhīyate the word comes in. So one who follows scriptural rules and regulations, then automatically one starts progressing. So that's what. So that's where exactly I was pointing out, like, important is like, as Prabhu said, like, we cannot wish away with all our, wishes. Like, we have some attachments and we have some detachments, right? We completely, cannot allow ourselves to blow away with the attachments. We should not allow ourselves completely, okay, we will have attachment and detachments, but we should not allow us completely blow away from the attachments. So that is possible when you have a balanced perspective in your life, or, when you make decisions based on principles. That's what Prabhu was trying to say. So when you make decisions based on your principles and not on the moods and emotions, because moods and emotions could vary. So that was one of the important takeaway. And then it is very important. That is where when you do that, vidhīyate word, which was very, very important. Vidhīyate is the word meaning vidhi plus atma. So one who follows the vidhis, that is scriptural rules, not our own. Manogatan we have to anyway be discussed, right? Manogatan is anyway not a solution for us. We should in fact disagree with what is manogatan. हमने उसके ऊपर भी बहुत चर्चा की है. So what is scriptural rules and regulations, whatever has been said, that has to be followed upon. That is very, very important. And to understand that, that is where Mataji said it is that's when you do that regulation, the material regulation, material regulation, that is the launching pad. That is the launching pad for our spiritual liberation. So then also we discussed about, so when this launching pad discussion happened, we discussed about the rocket also, which leaves, which leaves the earthly atmosphere with some propulsion model that, the compression and propulsion method, and it just takes velocity and moves out of the Earth's range, okay, and goes into the space. So similarly, when for us, we in this material world, we have many material things which we want to, get attached to, but these regulations comes into picture, and they, when followed, make our consciousness purified, and in that way, we slowly get propelled outsideward, and that is where that buddhi has to be. And we took the reference of AK He Karunandana, that is one of Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. That is where we discussed that, one has to have that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, where that discrimination power should be AK He Karunandana. It is only one. You cannot have two minds, so you cannot have two buddhis. Minds can be many, and then mind is also one, but it responds to various senses. But buddhi is one which is clear discrimination it has, that is based on the rules and regulations. You should follow this, instead of this, you do this. So buddhi is that's one. And then two, if we also discussed about yasmin tushte jagat tushte, right? When you have to, prasad, when you get this, when you do this, when you follow scriptural rules and regulations, in the end you get this prasad. Prasad we thought was, one is okay, normal prasad which we offer to Lord and have. Second is okay, we have it to the general public. That is where we discuss the second type of prasad. And third type of prasad is the purification for the self. Purification for the self. So that is where exactly purification for the self, that is what is mostly talked about here. Krishna is not talking about, okay, that's also one of the mercy, we get this, but mostly it is the purification of the self which Krishna was talking about. So once you come into that purifying mode, what will happen? All your hanis, they will just vanish away, right? All those hanis, whatever, hanis in the sense, whatever, you have any, हाँ बैड कर्मास नहीं, लाइक आपके कोई तकलीफ और दुख बोलते हैं ना उसको, एनी काइंड ऑफ okay, yes. So we discussed about two things in that also. When you say hani, we discussed two things, like what was that? One is inconvenience and one is distress, pain or distress, right? One is inconvenience and one is pain or distress. Like we are going in a car, and if the car tire is punctured, it becomes an inconvenience. It's not a pain, okay? But if somebody's hand is broken or somebody's leg is broken by accident, then that is a big pain. So that way, so when you get prasad, all these kinds of miseries, all these three kinds of miseries are moved. So we discussed like one who is a devotee, that is, if he is following these regulations, how that he will not meet an accident? No, he will also meet an accident. That's not an issue. That's not there. But the consciousness which is brought into this material level, that is purified by attaching himself to the higher purpose. And okay, this body given by Krishna had got damaged, I'll have to get it repaired and again get it to work of Krishna. Like, he will, like, he will not be like those materialistic person where we discussed, even a slightest scratch on the car will be like, as if a sword beam swiped on your chest. चाकू कटार जैसा छुरी चल गई हो दिल पे, वैसा लगता है, वैसे नहीं रहता है. हाँ ठीक है, कार को एक्सीडेंट हुआ है, पंक्चर हुआ है, ठीक है, करवाना पड़ेगा. That's the whole thing. He'll have to approach that some kind of petrol pump, gas station and get it repaired, and he'll have to go forward. So this way, hani rasyo pajayate. And once you come into that consciousness, these are all material things, and I have much more higher objective in my life to fulfill, then automatically you become happy in all the situations. Even when you are in pain, okay, in the hospital, or say when your leg is broken, you are in the hospital, you are in pain, but still you are internally happy. Okay, khali pair toot gaya, pura sharir to bad gaya. So some kind of this thing, solace comes in internally, and that is where you become prasanna chetaso hi aso. You become certainly happy within internal because you have tasted the higher taste. And at that time, your intelligence would be fixed. So for intelligence, some people say, okay, that means what? Only by reading scriptures intelligence comes? No. Intelligence comes, whatever intelligence is there, you try to read the scriptures along with that intelligence. Okay. And we discussed about intelligence not being digital, like yes or no. It is not yes or no. It is progressive. We call it as analog. Intelligence is to be measured in an analog way. So as and when you progress in life, automatically intelligence to that level, you keep on gaining your experience. When you read scriptures and you apply those scriptures in life, to that extent you go forward, and that is where those scriptural injections becomes your injections, because those principles are mentioned in the scriptures, but when you start following them, adopting them in your life, it becomes your assimilation, then it becomes your intelligence. So like that doesn't mean that intelligence wasn't there. It was there. It got purified with whatever we read, and we started more reading, we are getting more purified, and that is where we say Shastras are not that easy. We keep on reading and we get new types of realization. Hare Krishna. So we'll come to today's shloka. Nāsti buddhir ayuktasya na cāyuktasya bhāvanā. Na cābhāvayataḥ śāntir aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham. Prabhu already read in English. So Krishna is describing again now today what will happen if one is not with the Supreme Lord. If one is not with the Supreme Lord, if one's intelligence is not well situated. So he is describing the consequence if one's intelligence is not connected with the Supreme. So last shloka he ended with buddhi paryava tishtate. That is, your intelligence is fixed, okay, in that particular situation. And today he is starting with nāsti buddhir ayuktasya. Nāsti buddhir ayuktasya. If one intelligence is not connected with the higher spiritual reality, that is what we call Krishna, the higher spiritual reality, through scriptural injunctions, then what is going to happen? That is what Krishna is speaking now. So as usual, he is continuing to answer Vrajeta Kim, the last fourth part of the question, secondary question raised by Arjuna, and it will continue till the last shloka of this chapter. If Vrajeta Kim, then the point, that is how he moves about. So 64 and 65, these slokas describes a point where one becomes transcendental. He becomes, he becomes transcendental, he comes to vidhīyātma. And now that vidhīyātma is the person who reads scriptures. And if he doesn't now follow scriptures, and his intelligence is not guided by the scriptures or guru, then what will happen is, na asti buddhir ayuktasya. The buddhi of such person doesn't remain very strong. Ayuktasya is yukta, opposite. When a is applied, it is opposite, right? We discussed many number of times, not na. So, ayuktasya, the one which is not connected, the opposite of connection, that is not connected, is ayukta. Na cha ayukta bhāvanā. So if your buddhi is not connected, then na cha ayukta bhāvanā. Bhāvanā refers to what? Man to hai. Bhāvanā means what? In emotions, exactly. So bhāvanā refers to emotions, which is of the mind. Right? The emotions comes out of mind. So bhāvanā refers to emotions of the mind. The mind of such person also does not stay connected with the spiritual. बुद्धि आपकी connected नहीं है, तो mind भी आपका connected नहीं है. So once intelligence is ayukta lost, then bhavana, the transcendental bhavana, the spiritual emotions which the mind can bring about, is also lost. The mind is not steady, it is flickering there. Whereas buddhi has to be steady. Eke karo nandana. Na cābhāvayataḥ śāntir. So such emotionless person cannot have peace. We'll discuss more in detail, but just I'm giving a first gist. And if such person cannot have peace, then aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham. So if then one does not have peace, then where is he going to have happiness? Previously we said hani rasyo pajayate prasanna chetaso yasu, we discussed. And today is Krishna is saying he cannot be happy. So this is the consequence of not being spiritual connected. So the inner world, which the body comprises of mind, intelligence, When that gets misled, then externally acting upon the senses, if senses are demanding, and mind and intelligence, if that gets affected by only the sensible demands, sensory demands, then we end up doing those undesirable things, right? So we end up doing those undesirable things. So here what, I stated, nāsti buddhir ayuktasya. Yukta is very, very important now. Yukta is very, very important in our life. Otherwise, we will not be able to do anything which is worthwhile. If you are not yukta, that is, if you are not connected with the Supreme, if you are not correlating with the Supreme, then that is whatever we do, anything worthwhile in our life, you are not going to do anything worthwhile in your life. In terms of spiritual growth, because in material growth, we may keep on growing. But when I talk as it is in terms of spiritual growth, often whether one is self-realized, or we say one is self-realized, or if one person is self-unrealized also we call, okay, he is self-realized, he is self-unrealized person, whether one is a spiritualist or whether one is a materialist or one is practicing karma yoga or bhakti yoga, as Krishna will reveal going on, going forward in the later chapters about bhakti yoga, still he stays in this world and acts in this world. So whatever be the case, first he has to act in the world. Chahe wo transcendental ho ya fir bhautik dhari ho. He has to act upon the world. So an engaged spiritualist, so there are two kinds of persons, spiritualist and materialist. So a spiritualist, he will also have to do the same job. He has to go to the work, he has to have his family, he has to take care of this family, everything. And so does the non-spiritualist also does. He also goes to the office, okay, we are in satsanga. Many persons who are not in satsanga, they also go to office, they also lead the life, okay, take care of their family, much, much better way maybe than us also, okay. So, but what is the difference which differentiates between these two kinds of materialistic and spiritualist person? What does that makes a difference? So I want just one word. Consciousness, simple. What is the difference between these two is the consciousness. One is material conscious, one is spiritual conscious. The consciousness, the thing which is, the consciousness is kya hai? What is consciousness? We describe it as a symptom of Atma, right? This in chapter 2 points we already discussed in the initial stages. Consciousness is the symptom of an Atma. That is the presence of Atma is defined by the consciousness. So your consciousness is material or spiritual. That is what makes the difference. So a person doing all types of work, he may be outwardly everybody is doing all kind of work similar, but the consciousness with which a spiritual person does and the consciousness with which a material person does, this is the difference. One will have material consciousness that I have to grow in life, I'll have to do everything for indriya trupti, and one is for I have to put it in the seva of contribution to the Krishna as a whole contribution, my part of contribution to Krishna. So this way, so a devotee will, in such situation, a devotee will avoid sinful activities. For this reason, the devotee will avoid sinful activities. But in general activities will all seem to be like that of a materialistic person, going to office, having a 2 BHK, 3 BHK house, or gadi, bangla, motor, everything. So whatever differentiate between devotees and non-devotees is not so much of external, although there is external difference also. Okay, and externally sometimes, when you come out to meet me on Friday, I may also be in a different dress. And if you meet me on some other day, I may be in a different dress. So externally, that doesn't make a lot of difference. But what is the main difference is that is internal consciousness. Okay, externally we may apply tilak and all those. Even some materialists also would apply sometimes tilak and all those. But internally, you would be all fully materialistic. So the internal consciousness, that is what makes, and that is what, to be happy, you have to look inside. We have already read that point. So for a devotee, spiritualist in general, there is sustained attempt to control the inner world rather than the external world. Because external world is beyond our control. So inner world is what within us. We can control that, provided we are not flowing with the. So the problem is with that is, this control saying is very easy, but life is very unpredictable, right? Life is very unpredictable, and because of this unpredictability, we have a lot of insecurity within us. And how does one deal up, and how future would come up? So a person looking about this future activities, current activities, then he stays confused and stays discouraged. And that is where it is important in our life that we recognize the importance of this yukta, the spiritual connection. You will get disturbed. That's the whole reason why you have to understand this word yukta, that is connection. Yoga, jisko hum bolte hain. So our subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. Right now, only mind and intelligence we are discussing, but false ego will also come. Going to the end of the chapter, it will come. That also will come. Okay. So the subtle bodies, which is mind, intelligence, and ego, that is false ego, we call it as, is actually filled with materialistic impressions. Is actually filled with materialistic impressions. But these impressions can be spiritualized. That is what is the Gita saying you also. That mind, buddhi and ahankar can be spiritualized, can be purified, can be given the prasad. Can be given the prasad. Unko bhi prasad spiritually can be. So मन, बुद्धि और अहंकार यदि शुद्ध हो जाए तो चित्त ऑटोमेटिकली शुद्ध हो गया और आत्मा तो शुद्ध ही है. ये सूत्र समझना बहुत जरूरी है. आत्मा तो शुद्ध ही है, परंतु आत्मा तो एक्ट डायरेक्टली कर नहीं सकता है, बॉडी के थ्रू एक्ट करता है. ग्रॉस बॉडी और माइंड, इंटेलिजेंस और फॉल्स ईगो, ये सूक्ष्म बॉडी. सो 3, that is gross body from outside and 3 subtle bodies. With these only the soul acts. Soul is automatically pure because it is Satchidananda, part and parcel of the Satchidananda. But the mind, intelligence and false ego are in effect with the material world. They interact with the material world, and that is where the contamination happens, and that is where purification is required, and that is where this material regulations comes into picture. So once you are spiritualized, then you automatically get chance to elevate yourselves to Krishna. So buddhi ayukta can be understood in 3 ways. Ayukta word can be understood in 3 ways. One is not connected to Krishna. Okay, one is simple one which is not connected to Krishna. Why? Because buddhi not connected to Krishna. Why? Because buddhi is given by Krishna. 10.10, everybody, I think so, I made you open many number of times. 10.10 Krishna, dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. 10.10 Krishna says that, I give such intelligence to such person for doing bhakti so that they can reach me. The ways, I give them the ways through which they can reach me. Dadami buddhi yogam tam, main unko aise buddhi deta hu. So that is where it is connected or not connected with Krishna. Second ayukta is dharmic, adharmic. Means adharmic. Actually, second ayukta is adharmic. You'll say, how adharmic? How can buddhi be adharmic? Yeah, one who is not following dharma is adharmic. Okay, one who is not following dharma is adharmic. So every yoga has some prescribed dharmas, yoga dharmas. Okay, every yoga, I'll make it very simple. Every yoga has some yoga dharma. And what is the yoga dharma for Kali Yuga? Nam Sankirtan. So if that's what we do every time. So Kali Yuga yoga dharma is Harinam Sankirtana. So you're all chanting, right? You come here before you chant 1 round of mala. That is also Sankirtana. Okay. We do Kirtan. That is also Sankirtana. You're listening to me. That is also Sankirtana. So, and you're all reciting, I am listening. That is also Sankirtana. So that is where you're all dharmic, so don't worry about it. But the question is,
हम लोग सेफ हैं.
हमारा तो यही काम है, जितने लोगों को हो ये नाम ले और सेव करो. तीसरा मीनिंग है अयुक्त का, being inattentive. Okay, तीसरा मीनिंग बुद्धि अयुक्ता is बुद्धि inattentive. Yeah, means selectively listening. Selectively, what is karna priya, karnarendriya. So what is suitable to me, I'm looking at that thing only. Okay, karna is okay, but anything, whatever is suitable to me, I'm enjoying accordingly. So Krishna is giving advice, be matpara, that is, look to me as an object of your senses, but we want to act in an inattentive way. No, not looking it as a matpara, and that is also inattentive way. That is, Krishna said, attentively you should have listened, but then, you're leaving it. So it's inattentive. The point to understand here is that intelligence being fixed is the actual intelligence. Eke Kurunandana, that's why it was said in 2.4. Eke Karunandana. Intelligence being fixed is the actual intelligence. That is where no dual buddhi can exist. So vyavasayatmika buddhi is very, very important. If you have bahushaka buddhi, you will never be able to come to controls or never be able to ekagrata kabhi bhi aapne जीवन में नहीं ला सकते. You will never be able to make it steady. Man is chanchala. You have to make it nischala. You cannot make him achala. But buddhi is achala. So Eke Karunandana, that's why it was said. So no dual buddhi will help you out, and that is where we discussed about various from Vedavada Ratha and all those things. That is where to this Sthita Prajña person, and we are describing how this Sthita Prajña person goes ahead. So last sloka also Krishna spoke of the instance, on the intelligence part only, where buddhi paryavatishtate, he used the word, right? And here he is using nāsti buddhir ayuktasya. Does this two word give the same meaning or not? Convey you the same meaning or not? Buddhi paryavatishtate is you become fixed in intelligence. Nāsti buddhir ayuktasya is also giving you the same option but in a flip side. If you're not connected, you will happen this. If you're not connected, it will happen this. So he is giving you the same option but as a flip side. Okay?
Both mean the same.
Yeah, both mean the same. But the question, it is on the flip side. So you have to understand that buddhi is eke karunandana. So that buddhi is eke karunandana. That eke karunandana should be based on the scriptural regulations, become vidhīyate and not the other person. What was spoken in the last sloka? Vidhīyate and one is... Okay, we'll discuss. Okay, it will come out. So, second line is na ca ayuktasya bhāvanā. Na ca ayuktasya bhāvanā. पहला वाला श्लोक पढ़िए. 65 का 64 का पढ़िए. इंद्रियेश्चरण आत्मवश्यर विधेयात्मा. विषयान इंद्रियेश्चरण. Okay. So आत्मवश्यर विधेयात्मा बुद्धि अध्यक्षति. Okay, fine. So in that, so we are this first line we discussed na cāyuktasya bhāvanā, the second line. So such ayukta buddhi will not have ayukta bhāvanā. It means like will have ayukta bhāvanā. Ayukta buddhi will have ayukta bhāvanā, because when a bhāvanā, mind is not steady, it's wandering here and there, it is not fixed, and that's why that is also not so it will percolate, like buddhi is not become yukta, so mind is also not, it's not trying to steady the mind because it's not giving guidance properly to the mind to become steady. Rather, then mind is free will. I'll do whatever I want. That's where we say Krishna bhāvanāmrit sang. Bhāvanā मतलब यहाँ पर भी use किया हमने. Krishna bhāvanāmrit sang. Krinta is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is very important. Bhāvanāmrit is very important. When that means amrita, bhāvana amrita. The bhāvana emotion should be for amrita, right? Bhāvana amrita is emotion should be for amrita. And what is amrita? That is Krishna, service to Krishna. Krishna bhāvana amrita. वह अमृत जो कृष्ण की सेवा में करने से हमें जो प्राप्त होता है वह वैसा उस प्रकार का अमृत, तो वो प्रिंसिपल है. So one has to understand that amrut, and that is where Krishna bhavanamrit we try to spread it. So the principle is given by Krishna himself, and Srila Prabhupada writes in the Tatparya, that is 5.29 when he quotes, that is where Krishna Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim ricchati. So more of a peace, that is, there even at international level peace cannot be held. Today we have United Nations which is fully for peace nations, but you cannot establish peace at all. Why? Because Krishna is not there in the center there. Krishna, if it is kept in the center, then automatically peace will come. And so, as a summary, he's already said through this intelligence and buddhi, mano ke through, humko aaj bata rahe ki how that peace can be obtained. So, the same principle which is said in 5.29 later on is coming here. So Krishna is Paramaniyanta, that is, he is the ultimate controller. Bhoktaram yagya tapsam. He says, I am the Bhokta, you are all Upabhokta. Upabhokta are consumers, whereas Bhokta is only one person. We are all Upabhoktas. And Krishna is Krishna is Param Bhokta, Krishna is Param Niyanta also. He is the controller. That's why we call him Ishvara Parama Krishna. Ishvara are everybody, even small Ishvara, big Ishvara, like so Devi Devatas are also Ishvara. But they can control to limited aspect. Parama Ishwar is a person, Parameshwar jisko bolte is a person who can control everything. So Ishvara Parama Krishna, that's why Brahmaji said. So Krishna is Param Niyanta, controller, and Krishna is close to everybody's heart. Surudam Sarva Bhutanam, Riddesher Tishtati. Many shlokas Krishna will go ahead and speak that I am situated in your heart. So I am the nearest one to you. I am the nearest friend to you who can understand you very well. So we think, okay, nobody is seeing us. No, Paramatma, Krishna is already sitting in your heart. He is already witnessing every activity. Don't think that nobody is seeing. He is already seeing it inside, whatever you are performing. So this way, a self-realized soul, Rajat came, how does he engage in the world now? Move about in the world is naturally we cannot keep our senses shut down, right? We cannot keep our senses shut down. We cannot close it, excepting when we do pratyahara. When we'll do dhyana yoga, pratyahara comes, that is where we'll have to withdraw it for some purpose, and we'll discuss that during when. But in general, it is discussed that, we cannot reject the sensory demands. We cannot shut down our senses. We cannot keep our eyes closed permanently. We cannot close our nose permanently. Okay. So we cannot do all those things. We have already discussed that. So here what is saying, practicing some form of yoga that keeps him in the world, then external rejection of senses in the world is not possible.
Is there any difference between fixing the intelligence and Vyakt Buddhi?
And
Vyakt Buddhi.
Vyavasayatmika Buddhi.
No, like
Ayukta Buddhi.
Vyakt Buddhi, connected, yes.
Connected Buddhi, no, that's what, no. That is where we said Buddhi Yoga was, that is why that part was the name as Buddhi Yoga.
But like fix mean like we are jamming.
So it is not possible. That's why he gave the process. How do you become fixed? That from wo jo chart maine diya tha, you have to adopt that in life. Then only you will become fixed. And going forward, you will still understand. That's not an issue. That is where that when we discuss that flow chart, 2.40 to 2.53, that we know we are not, we are Bahushaka. So the process was given. It's a huge process. Through each shloka, we understood each and every shloka. And 54 again, then Arjuna said, such person, how does he sit and how does he walk and how does he talk and how does he, all those things he asked. And that is where we discussed all the things, like what is his conditions. And now we are talking about his last question, that is how does he walk around. So we have to have some kind of senses, so there, what is emphasized here is this is inner connection to Krishna. That is where exactly. And Krishna is explaining that by a negative flow, by saying it in a negative flow here to you. When that inner connection is not there, one cannot have intelligence, and that is the reason one cannot have that steady mind also. Because nobody is there, the intelligence which has to be fixed and guide. This is correct, that's it. Okay, like what does a psychologist do? For example, if you go for psychology consultation, if you are doing the same kind of consultation with your father, mother, what will happen? Okay, they will become a bit biased sometimes, Are bete ko ye pasand hai, bete ko wo pasand, and they may give you that here and there. But if you go an external psychologist, he is not bound by your internal relationship. He will clearly say, whatever be the case, you will have to do this, you will have to do that. Like some kind of guidance when he gives. So, straight away बोलेगा आपको ये पिताजी को ऐसा प्रॉब्लम है, आपको ये करना ही पड़ेगा ऐसा, like that is where they can say. Now we have all, so we all have mind, so we have experience that mind is restless, so one cannot even enjoy material things also, leave about spiritual things. When mind is restless, when mind is flickering here and there, leave about spiritually. We cannot even enjoy material things also properly. So, for example, now again, I was thinking of not to take this example, but I said Prabhu is given a very nice chance to us so that at least Prabhu को याद करते हैं हम जब भी भगवान कृष्ण कॉन्शियसनेस की भगवद गीता वगैरह पढ़ते हैं करते हैं या एग्जाम्पल बनाते हैं तो क्रिकेट का एग्जाम्पल हम लोगों का अच्छी तरह से हो गया सो एग्जाम्पल क्रिकेट somebody is watching he is very deep into it है ना उसका माइंड तो उसी में लगा हुआ है because उसकी इंद्रियां is watching that cricket and somebody comes with गुलाब जामुन भाई अभी अभी मैंने भोग लगा के गुलाब जामुन लाया है तो क्या होगा उसका माइंड उसमें लगेगा गुलाब जामुन खाने में उसका लास्ट ओवर चल रहा है बाइट ऑफ द मैच है गुलाब जामुन खाने में मन लगा अरे रख दे बाजू में पहले देखने दे हाँ खा सकते हैं डिपेंड्स ऑन दिस थिंग हाँ नहीं वो क्या बोलेगा अरे देखने दे एक हफ्ते एक हो रहा है देख दो वाले मैं खाता हूँ रख खाता हूँ इन जनरल तो यही रहेगा आई डोंट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट किसी का कुछ और रहता होगा आई थॉट ऑफ दिस मे बी आई एम रॉन्ग इट्स ओके दैट इज व्हाट दैट एंग्जाइटी दैट टेंशन दैट एंग्जाइटी टू व्हाट द रिजल्ट वुड बी that is not overpowered by this tasty gulab jamun or juicy gulab jamun. Now if he's caught in the midst of tension, so he's not bothered about that juicy gulab jamun. So what will happen? The sutra comes in, the availability and the receptivity of our consciousness determines the intensity of the sensuary stimuli that we experience. Okay? The availability and receptivity of our consciousness determines the intensity of the sensuary stimuli that we experience. So when that person watching the TV, as I said, gulab jamun, it does not affect him much because he will have that anyway later on. हार गया तो भी उसको बाद में खाना ही है और जीत गया तो भी डबल खाना है या फिर हार गया तो भी डबल खाना है जैसे भी उसकी इच्छा तो वो खाएगा ही खाएगा परंतु यही चीज इफ ही इज नॉट दैट मच अटैच्ड टू किसी ने बोला कि भाई ये लोग प्रसाद लाया हूं मैं गुलाब जामुन अरे प्रसाद लाया मना नहीं करते एक खा लेते हैं और देखते रहते हैं ओके काम तो दोनों एक ही कर रहे हैं दोनों एक ही कर रहे हैं भावना कितनी चेंज हो गई प्रसाद मना नहीं करते एक छोटा सा पीस दे दो कभी कभी होता है ना मेरे साथ भी होता है ना कभी हम स्वीट नहीं खाते दामोदर में इतना सा क्या बोलते हैं भोग जो लगता है क्या बोलते हैं उस समय मक्खन का वो दे दो कॉन्शियसनेस उसको खा के तृप्त नहीं होना है कॉन्शियसनेस दूर करना है प्रसाद मना नहीं करना है ना तो कॉन्शियसनेस विच मैटर्स सो this is what is that material and spiritual thing of thinking okay na cābhāvayataḥ śāntir so you understood na bhāvanā and na ayukta buddhi ayukta and man ayukta so man is flickering because buddhi which is there to guide is not there properly that is flickering as well so naturally man will be flickering na cābhāvayataḥ śāntir now without yukta of intelligence and mind you will not get peace only and that is where we discussed 5.29 Srila Prabhupada gave the example we discussed also and such person if he is not having shanti then he will never feel happy also aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham he'll have no peace so no happiness simple so often we chase for things that make us happy that is I want new house I want car and all those we put ourselves always into anxiety and become in the perpetual state of anxiety for us आज बंगला लिया कल नहीं आज गाड़ी ली फिर बंगला लिया फिर जो है सो गार्डन लिया कोठी ली ऐसा धीरे धीरे वो कुछ एंड होने वाला नहीं है एक BHK से शुरू होके मल्टीपल कोठियां भी बना लो still your mind would be demanding more and more only there is no end the anxiety will keep on increasing and increasing only unless you yourself are making yourself content you know the concept of content and you stop there that is where buddhi can guide you kya karna hai so that is where so we have excessive presence of passion in our life that is where this intent this anxieties and all those comes out and our culture at large is also defined our culture which we have come into has also more or less made this us to be more anxiety and more in anxiety तो उसने किया है उसने विलेज में पार्टी दी है तो हमें भी देना है ऐसा मतलब इन जनरल तो एक कल्चर में हमारे देखा देखी जिसको हम बोलते हैं ना एक कल्चर में हमारे देखा देखी ये थोड़े बेड़ चाल जिसको बोलते हैं so that is the reason if you are not so that comes into a matter so if you have not experienced any higher happiness. So no matter whatever pleasurable things comes to us, there will be a kind of sort of relief from that anxiety only. Unless you have developed matpara, all these anxieties, okay, you have some solutions, okay, tumne bhi party de li hai, but then that will be a kind of short relief, you call it as a sort of relief for that anxiety. They are not so much of positive, because pleasures can be experienced only when you have a peaceful mind. Pleasures can be experienced fully when you have a peaceful mind, and if mind is not peaceful, then those pleasures are very, very negligible. कोई मतलब नहीं है, ठीक है, दिखावे के लिए हम खुश हो रहे हैं, but we are not happy. And when you are not happy, aśāntasya kutaḥ, you will not get peace because your mind is not peaceful. So the result is not being happy. aśāntasya kutaḥ sukham. So now take for the sake of a peace does not mean okay, शांति मिलना चाहिए, उसकी वजह से क्या मैं सब कुछ पाना छोड़ दूं दुनिया में, कमाना छोड़ दूं दुनिया में, सुख ढूंढना छोड़ दूं दुनिया में? Is it possible? Not possible. So one may have peace but will not have happiness. One will have peace but not happiness if he is not having that quest at all. For the sake of peace, does that mean that first we should give up the quest for things? पहले छोड़ देना चाहिए क्या? नहीं. One may have peace, but that will not. But one will have peace and will not have happiness. ये ऐसा होगा, condition कभी होगा? So it's not like that, right? So there has to be a balanced pursuit here also. There has to be a balanced pursuit to the things of life. When there is excessive passion, then the pursuit of things which promises happiness takes away our peace, and then even when we get those things, we don't get that kind of happiness.
Content.
Yeah, the content. That is where the concept of content comes in. This does not mean that we should become lethargic. This does not mean that we should become lethargic. We should not become unambitious. We should become unambitious. No. Our focus must be focused primarily on keeping ourselves in the mode of goodness. That is what we have to see. Our primary focus should be that we have to be in the mode of goodness. We can strive. So for striving, there is never a problem. We should strive, but strive in the mode of goodness. Okay, the way we can strive, but the way we strive due to passion, that is the problem. Passion is where it comes. Bed chal, dekha dekhi. So passion is both. No, see, it is passion is at the flip of positive also and negative also. So when you say mode of ignorance, that is totally negative. Mode of the goodness, that is fully positive. Mode of passion is neutral. It can swing to both. It can swing to both. Partially happy, partially. So अभी हम discuss करेंगे. We'll come through it. Don't worry. Partially अभी passion से हम कहाँ लेके चले जाता है passion. So that is where this point of मन बुद्धि ये सब चीजें हैं. So yukta, when we are connected to Krishna, then internally we stay calm. Even externally a lot of things are happening, and we do a lot of things that may be a problem, but still we are rooted to Krishna, and that is where we are not disturbed. That is where going forward, one good example will also come about no, we already no, it will come. Going forward, it will come. And various rivers coming and falling into the ocean still doesn't get agitated. That will come later on. But that is what the sutra, which we will be going through towards that, So Srila Prabhupada had a lot of problems in his life. Like, with 40 rupees had gone to USA, वहाँ पर भी उनको कितनी प्रकार के problem झेलना पड़ा. If you read Lilamrit, and still he did not go to passion. He always remained in Satoguna. Okay, passion which is diverted towards Satoguna. That also I can say, if I break passion into two things, take the second half of passion, and which leads us to the goodness, mode of goodness. So that Actually, he was very strongly connected to Krishna, and that is where he did not get disturbed, though he had so much of disturbances in his life. So in our daily sadhana, which strongly connects us with Krishna, is actually a foundation for us. इतने लोग साधना को light लेते हैं. Like, chanting of 16 rounds, if somebody takes it very lightly, then, they are losing the chance of being connected with Krishna, because Krishna, abhinatva nam namino, the name, my name and me are not different, Krishna says. If you take the name Krishna or Sakshat Krishna, he is one and the same. So abhinatva nam namino, so जब हम नाम लेते 16 माला जब करते हैं, तो 16 माला करने का जो चांस मिलता है, उसके अंदर if we are doing all other activities, उसके अंदर भी फोन देखेंगे, उसके अंदर भी इधर उधर कनेक्शन बिठाएंगे, so that connection will not be properly established. So we do all kinds of material activities and still try to do connection, so that becomes a bit difficult, and that is where the happiness is. So if you do consciously 16 mala, that is, take the charge of Krishna within you by doing 16 rounds, doing a Mangalarti, reading books and Bhagavatam, you are fully charged for the full day. Battery full charged है, mobile की आज पूरा 24 घंटे रहेंगे, एक बार चार्ज कर लो, तो वैसा है ये spiritual charging. When you do it once, then you are at least remain, so you can be calm to that extent. So, in 64 and in 62 and 63, Krishna described the 8 stages of fall down, right? 8 stages of fall down. We discussed all those. And from 64 to 66, that is 64, 65 and 66, he had made us to go through the 8 stages of progression, which ends up in peace. So its peace will not come just at the sloka 66. Don't be under that impression. It is the 8 process flows which had come from 64, 65 and 66. So how is that? In 64 and 66, what are those 8 processes which we had gone through? Engage your senses through regulative principles in, as Krishna said, matpara. So based on that, regulative principles of freedom, you engage your senses. That is matpara in Krishna, matpara with Krishna. So that is first stage, okay? Second is, when you do that, you get prasad, purity. That's what, right? You get purification within yourself. So how your mind, intelligence and false ego has to get purified. So once you take his name, Krishna is all pure. We have understood this from the beginning. So when you associate yourself with the pure, you are pure. When you are associated with this satsang, you are automatically pure. So you get prasad, that is purity and is mercy. Then second, when you get the mercy, what will happen? Hani rasyopajayate. All your miseries come to an end. Okay, so your consciousness becomes so strong that you see a hand of God there. भाई मेरे कुछ गलती हो गई तो भगवान ने बचा लिया, भगवान की कृपा है, बच गए, हाथ ही टूटा है, लाइक वो हाथ टूटा बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है, बट देन वो छोटा हो जाता है when you connect it to Krishna. So it becomes small, petty. So that is where you get so hani rasya, all your miseries ends, and when your miseries ends, you become prasanna chetaso yasu. That is, you become happy. Your consciousness, happy consciousness rather, I'll say, you become happy conscious, and then your intelligence become fixed. There also we discussed intelligence fixed is come only after all those 4 stages. So then your intelligence become fixed. Buddhi paryavatishtate. Then your intelligence become fixed. Then in the minds we develop transcendental bhāvanā for Krishna. So bhāvanā है, bhāvanā कई चीजों में लगी हुई है, कई चीजों को एक से कनेक्ट करना है, बस सिंपल यही तो काम है. जितनी भावना है, जितनी चीजों को उसको एक से कनेक्ट करनी है. That is where Krishna, that is where we can develop transcendental bhāvanā to Krishna. That is 6th. When you connect the transcendental bhāvanā to Krishna, then you get peace. Peace in mind, śāntir. Okay, आज तो ये कर दिया, अपना काम कृष्ण समर्पण कर दिया है, मेरा काम हो गया, कृष्ण को समर्पण कर दिया, शांति. And once shanti, once peaceful, then one becomes happy. Otherwise, so this 3 points today Krishna was saying, that is where in the flip side of the coin. if you don't do in the flip side, if you don't do if you don't do yukta buddhi, that is where he spoke ayukta, then your bhāvanā are ayukta, then you cannot be peaceful. So this is the sutra to become peaceful. So these are the 8 stages of these 3 shlokas actually. So practically for us, what means, like the mind and intelligence actually, deviate from meditation on Krishna, then what happens? Then there is no questions of happiness. Deviating from the thoughts of Krishna. Krishna we are saying because of the Krishna consciousness. Okay, Supreme I call it as, because many of the time deviating from the thoughts of Supreme and contemplating on sense objects is becoming overwhelming and becoming overwhelmed by their desires for a material enjoyment is the problem. So that's why the real peace formula, which we'll discuss in detail in 5.29. Okay, that is just a glimpse which has come in. That is 66. 67 we discuss. Indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ yan mano nuvidhīyate. Okay, ये peace formula तो हो गया. अब आगे 2.67 what Krishna is saying. Indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ yan mano nuvidhīyate tadasya harati prajñāṁ vāyur nāvam ivāmbhasi. So as a strong wind sweeps away the boat on water, even one of the roaming senses, important to note, on which the mind focuses can carry away the man's intelligence. So Shrikant Anna is not here. He was speaking about intelligence, how it gets abducted. so I said the first mind will get abducted, Prabhu, and then intelligence will get abducted. So don't worry. So mind has already got abducted before, and today intelligence abduction has come. Your intelligence gets abducted. So Krishna is using a natural metaphor again. As we said, this chapter, Krishna uses many metaphor. So metaphor is an example to illustrate. That will be very easy to give you a contrast. Example to illustrate how while living or while moving about or acting about in this world, okay, if we are not careful, the roaming senses can drag away our intelligence also. Prajeta kim, right? So the answer continues. So we'll go word by word. Indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ. While the senses are on roaming, caratāṁ is moving about. While the senses are moving about, senses are moving about in the sense when you are moving about, your senses also moves along with you, right? So eye can see anything, ear can hear anything, you are walking, and you must be eating something, so you must be tasting something. All senses are working independently, and you are also walking, right? All senses are involved and you are moving. Indriyāṇāṁ hi caratāṁ. So in this, so 2.64 is, as he said, so like, two contrasting words I said was vidhyātma and ayukta, So now ayukta and vidhyātma, now these two contrasting words have come. Vidhyātma is one who follows vidhi, okay, and ayukta is one who is not connected. So, and when we discuss Vishayan Indriyescharan, people who tries to control that senses through negative principle, so as I discussed, an ayukta person who is not connected with Krishna are looking for their own indriya trupti, as Mataji was saying. And vidhyātma person who follows regulative principles, his senses also see the same object, but the difference is the consciousness, which is material versus spiritual. So work-wise, we may seem that both are on the same plane, but the consciousness-wise, they are different. So ayukta man sees sense objects. Sense objects, when I say, include the mind here. Because in this shloka, when I said sense objects, it is all the 6 sense objects. So sixth sense is the mind, like going forward, Krishna will clarify that also. Mama shashtani indriyāṇi prakritisthani karshati. You are all my part and parcel beings, and you have come to this world, and you are unnecessarily suffering with 6 senses, which include mind. That is where he says. So that is where when we say, so that shloka, so when I say with senses is involved, that senses, because mind is automatically involved, because the moment sense is doing something, mind has to contemplate and give the result. Mind has to contemplate. So mind is automatically involved along with the senses. Mind has to contemplate, it has to go. So going to, so that is where exactly ayukta man sees as his indriya trupti. And Vidyatma sees the same thing as a Krishna's service. Yan mano nu vidhīyate. Yan mano anuvidhīyate. Whatever, yan means whatever, mano, that is man, anuvidhīyate, whatever the mind concentrates upon, it concentrates upon, that has to be obeyed as a command, right? So, anuvidhīyate is like a command, has to be obeyed. When the major gives this thing, fire, means the fire has to fire, right? So, it's a command. So, yan mano anuvidhīyate, the mind accepts the commands of all the senses. The senses are throwing various demands and the mind is acting upon that. So even if various objects are whatever objects the senses perceive, the mind has to anuvidhīyate, obeying the command. So ear sense is enjoying some music. So mind obeys that command, right? And as a sense organ, it tries to help him to enjoy that music. How many of you, the radio is going on, or say nowadays mobile and earphones are going on. So earphone is going upon, and you see some advertisements also coming through in the WhatsApp group. Somebody is just listening to the music, and till some time it is listening, and at one fine time it will say, he'll also start shouting loudly and start singing, right? He will not realize I am on the earphone, and ऐसा आपके चुटकुले आते हैं व्हाट्सएप पे कि ऐसा कोई सुन रहा है, सामने वाले डर जाता है, अरे इसको क्या हो गया, एकदम पागल हो गया क्या, अचानक से जोर जोर से चिल्ला के गाना शुरू कर दिया, है ना? तो और या रेडियो पे कोई गाना चल रहा हो, कोई पुराना गीत आ रहा हो, तो आप आगे की लाइन पहले ही गाना चाहते हो. Why? Because you know that song very well. You have already tasted that. आपके मन में ऑलरेडी है वो, है ना? तो माइंड इज ऑलरेडी हेल्पिंग यू आउट. रिकलेक्ट, भाई ये गाना तुमने सुना है, उसकी अगली लाइन ये है, अभी ये बहुत सुंदर लाइन आने वाली है, नॉट दोस. सो माइंड obeys that command, it tries to help you out. So the mind obeys the orders of the ear sense organ, and once the mind is engaged to ear and its music, then it just forgets about the other sense objects demands. That is what, for a partial moment I'll tell you, because when you are not trained, like when you are ayuktasya, that is where situation. So it tries to forget about things. So a person going in the ear pod in his ear and listening to the mobile in a high voice and talking and jhoomte hue, and sometimes closes his eyes and going on the street, not knowing there is a ditch which comes and he goes and fall into it. Or even if he has seen, till the time he realizes and says to the mind, or he is driving a vehicle, for example, and till the time he sees that, oh, I have to hit brake, until the time the mind responds and to other things, he is already fallen into that trap. Like, so like computer, it when you have opened some complex program, it is working on it. And when you try to open some other program, it will say it is not responding. It will say or not. It is not responding in the sense what? It is not responding to you, Baba. It is responding to some other program which is running. That is actual meaning in technical terms. We say it is not responding. It is not responding to us. No, it cannot speak to us. It is responding to the program which is already being run. That is why it is not responding to the fresh program which you have raised. It means that. So for that, what do you use? Control Alt Del. What program I'm doing is taking too long. This Excel file, I have to close that, and probably then it will start responding, right? Control Alt Del, simple. So this way, one mind is misled when one of the senses occupies the mind completely. When one of the senses occupies the mind completely, mind can be misled. So as I was saying about that earphone guy, he can be misled. He can go and fall in a manhole, open manhole. See, many things can happen. So visual sense, by the time it sees and responds, sends the signal to the brain. Prabhu was asking last time, brain and mind, right? So brain is like a hardware, Prabhu, and mind is a software. So I said, but then you did not come in the next class. So visual sense. So that point where that other, it has to come in, that the time is not enough. As a result, it is not responding and the mishap happens. Unless somebody has caught hold of him very strongly, अरे गिर जाएगा तू, जाके पकड़ के झकझोरता है, कोई बोलते ना एकदम strongly. jolts the other person, that is like a control or delete. He will not come back to his senses. So that is then only he will be able to break that fellow's contemplation. जो ध्यान है उसको break कर सकता है. Otherwise, it may get absorbed. क्योंकि senses kept mind busy, and mind and senses are enjoying. And that's why mind is called a different person within yourself. If that enjoys, sometimes you are lost within yourself also. So the 5 senses are compared to the 5 wives of the mind. 5 senses are compared to the 5 wives of the mind. So we cannot, we can be with one at one time. Not all the 5, right? At one time. Simultaneously, we have to train actually. But Krishna could be with all 16,108 at one time. Bhagavatam clearly describes how he enters the house and gets divided himself into 16,108, and every wife think it is. सहस्त्र गोपी एक नारायण, नारायण एक ही थे. सहस्त्र गोपियों ने सोचा कि मेरे साथ ही नाच रहे हैं. So Krishna can do that any point of time, but for us we cannot multiply ourselves. That is where mind to train for different senses, to act for different senses, that is where training. That is where training. And that training will come by abhyas. Abhyas. For mind to be busy in one of the senses, and that's where training of mind comes in, and that is where 6.35 you can open. Krishna gives the answer. Asanchayam mahabhavo mano dur nigraha chalam abhyaseta tu kaunteya vairagye na cha griyate. Read the translation. 6.35. ढूंढने में टाइम लग गया. 35. हाँ. नहीं वो नहीं, ट्रांसलेशन पढ़िए.
चंचल मन को वश में करना अत्यंत कठिन है, किंतु उपयुक्त अभ्यास द्वारा तथा विरक्ति द्वारा ऐसा संभव है.
उपयुक्त विरक्ति, that is suitable. Virakti is detachment, and abhyas is by practice. We have to practice, and that is where alert mind games, it has to mind to respond to simultaneously many things. It's like naturally Windows, when software has been given, it responds to many programs, right? But at times it gets control all deal karna padta hai. But the question is, it is capable of doing that, and that is where it has to be trained. So mind को उसी प्रकार से train करना होता है. And
अभी एक नहीं बजा माता जी.
तस्य harati prajñāṁ. So mind को ट्रेन करना इसीलिए बहुत आवश्यक है, तो पॉसिबल है. तो माइंड को ट्रेन कैसे करना है, ये सारी चीजें हैं. मत परा है, डाइवर्ट करना है, ब्रेक करना है एट द पॉइंट ऑफ ध्यायतो. ऑल दोस थिंग्स व्हाट वी आर लर्निंग इज आल्सो द ट्रेनिंग व्हिच इन्वॉल्व्स टू द माइंड. तस्य harati prajñāṁ. Harati is, again we discussed, harati means forcefully, right? Haran is Ravana kidnapping Sita is called haran, right? So harati takes away, kidnaps. 2.60 earlier it was used haranti prasabam mana, where man was kidnapped. And 2.42 also aparata chetasam, like your consciousness is abducted. We discussed when you have bahushaka buddhi, your consciousness is abducted by various demands. So haran is to steal away. And what is getting stolen away? Prajñāṁ. Prajñāṁ is intelligence. Prajñā is intelligence. Tasya prajñā pratishtita was a common slogan which Krishna was answering till now, right? From 54 onwards. Kitne baar use kiya? Tasya prajñā pratishtita. Tasya prajñā pratishtita. Many, 4-5 shloks you will see, almost. That was a common chorus. And from 54 onwards, and that prajñā gets stolen away. That with the intelligence which is fixed is stolen away. And the metaphor Krishna uses to define this harana is vāyur nāvam ivāmbhasi. ये हरण को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए he took the example of a wind which sweeps away the boat which is sailing on waters in a wrong direction, okay, or to any direction. That is, even it can yeah. So nāvam is boat and ivāmbhasi, ambhasi is water. Ambasi is water. So Krishna uses this metaphor from nature again, 2.46 he used well, 2.58 he used tortoise to give us various how to control the senses, and 2.67 wind and boat, where how sense control may be lost. So Krishna is essentially stating that sense control is lost in a way the wind sweeps away the boat. Later, Arjuna will also take the example of this wind in 6.34 only. You wrote 3.5 you read, no? 3.4 where Arjuna asked the questions. Chanchalahi mana Krishna Chanchalahi mana Krishna 34 hai. Tasya nigraha manye vāyur iva sudushkaram. Vāyur iva sudushkaram. He will use this vāyur. I cannot control this mind. I can control the winds, but I cannot control this mind because it is all constantly flickering. So disturbed mind. So he says, yeah, it is very difficult to control the mind, and that is where he says, abhyas, you have to do abhyas, responding to various programs. How? So unless you have programmed yourself in such a way, आज मुझे सुबह 6 बजे से लाके 8 बजे के बीच में 4 काम करने हैं. If you have not programmed yourself how to do, then you will end up in a chaos. So tasyaham nigraham anye vayuriva sudushkaram. So he will use this vayu example later on also. So Krishna here is talking about external sense objects creating a wind of passion that drags us away. Now you just say passion is also, wind is also a passion, right? So similar thoughts in your mind, which takes that passion, drives you away.
Can you please repeat that?
External sense objects. So Krishna is talking about the external sense objects creating a wind of passion that drags the mind away. Now a boat is moving smoothly in an ocean, right? Or a water body. But the same boat is tossed away when there is a stormy event. Terribly it can be devastating. It can be terrible as well as devastating also, right? It can be terrible. It may lose its way. Again, to come back boats, it's so difficult. And sometimes, if it goes in a shallow water, then to pull back to the deep waters is also very difficult. So stormy event can do any catastrophe. So including devastating, it can topple down the entire boat and everybody would die. So you all know, you're seeing all this, many times Chakravak aate hain, humne suna hai. So especially East India is very famous for Chakravaks, and especially Vizag, Orissa and Tamil Nadu are the best. Why? Because it is the consequence of the wind. Of course, the north, the monsoon returns and the southern winds blows towards the east and the north wind returned. And as a result, they, comes and, you collide each other, and as a result, a circular is formed, and that circle where it falls loose will go and storm that place. So that is where we say eye of the storm. Where it will hit, we do not know. Of course, there are predictions through which we come to know, and that is where even we predict about human beings also. And the boat practically, when this event, this thing happens, storm, is practically helpless at that time, right? It is helpless, just being, swept away. Now, similarly, it's not possible for us to deal in situation when the force of passion comes in through the senses into our mind and sweeps away our intelligence. 3.40 speaks of, a place where this, so when I say passion, the wrath of passion, where does this passion stay? So in these 3 places, senses, mind and intelligence. 3.40, you open the translation, will say that, lust. The senses, the mind and the intelligence are the sitting places of the lust. तो जीवात्मा के वास्तविक ज्ञान को. So the lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and then bewilders him. So this when the passion of winds attacks our senses and enters the mind, and in the mind, if the whirlpool happens, then your intelligence gets kidnapped along with that whirlpool. And that actually leaves a living entity bewildered. Ye kya kar baitha main? So many of the times. So 18.31, you can open one more. Yaya dharmam adharmam cha. You open 18.31, 18:31. समरी चैप्टर है ना, बीच में थोड़ा कम हो गया था, वापस मैंने बोला नहीं नहीं तो जरूरी है फ्यूचर रेफरेंसेस लेना. ट्रांसलेशन.
प्रथापुत्र, जो बुद्धि धर्म तथा अधर्म, कारणीय और अकारणीय कर्म में भेद नहीं कर पाती, वह राजसी
बुद्धि राजसी है ना. That understanding which cannot differentiate between religion and irreligion, that understanding which cannot differentiate between religion and religion, action to be done or not to be done, is in the mode of passion. So passion is about both, I said, towards the lower side as well as the higher side, both good and bad. So that's a reason in between, middle. Now that's why you remember ayukta, when I said I defined in 3 ways. Ayukta, I said dharmic and adharmic. So I defined it because ayukta guy whose intelligence does not differentiate between dharma and adharma is in the mode of passion. Okay, तो युग धर्म तो इसका लेटेस्ट एग्जांपल दिया मैंने, जो युग धर्म फॉलो करता है. So and if this passion gets created at the mind level, so if you're doing an means like, इसलिए मैं बोला कि ना ये उसलिए हम 3 में डिफाइन किया था कि धर्म अधर्म बुद्धि होती है, थोड़ा जल्दी से एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते. बट व्हेन यू रीड 18.31 इट सेज ये पैशन में होता है, और पैशन ऑफ वर्ल्ड पैशन जब क्रिएट होता है तभी ये सब चीजें हर ली जाती है. That's why I said the solution there. What did I say in the last slok? That you have to be in Sattva-gun, because something which is there, you have to try to see to it that you do it in the mode of goodness. 18.30, that is slok previous to 31. That will you read, you will get that answer also. कि Sattva-gun में क्या हो सकता है? 30 में बता देंगे आपको. I'll read out for you. I've written it in English. You can open and see also. Understanding of what needs to be done and what should not be done, what is to be feared of and what is to be not feared of, what is binding and what is not binding, that kind of buddhi is in the mode of goodness. ऐसी बुद्धि सात्विक बुद्धि है. Very clear. है ना? Going forward, very clear, he has said कि भाई one which needs to be done and one which not to be done. Not to get carried away. That is what Sattvic Buddhi. So if Sattva-gun is there, then that can control the Rajogun. Damodar Katha, you remember. सफेद दांतों को कृष्ण यूज करते हैं अपने लाल होठों को दबाने के लिए, only to indicate that passion can be controlled only with the Sattva-gun, mode of goodness. White color represents peace, that is Sattva-gun. Okay, and red represents passion. Okay. So अपने होठों को ऐसा गुस्सा करके दबा के यही बताना चाहते हैं कि ये सतोगुण ही आपके रजोगुण को दबा सकता है. दामोदर कथा. बिंब. सात्विक बुद्धि. So this is what I wanted to give out, that the actions, how it happens. So it makes you passionate. 3.38 last you open. Yatha darsham malenacha. That is where also buddhi comes in. .38. So read the translation.
There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which is pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and womb about the embryo.
Yes. So there, 3.38, there are 3 stages of how the, lust is, the passion is displayed. Okay, how it doesn't come suddenly in front of you. So it gives the indication. Just say if first is in the form of smoke in the fire. ना पहले अग्नि लगेगी तो you will not know about it. Smoke will come out. That is where smoke detectors are installed. So smoke, if there is a smoke, that is the indication of the fire. Okay, and then about mirror, right, Prabhu? Dust on the mirror. So this is what yatha darsho malenacha. This is what dust on the mirror. The buddhi is compared to the mirror. The buddhi is compared to the mirror. So the dissection capacity of the buddhi depends on the clarity of the mirror. मैं सुंदर दिख रहा हूं नहीं दिख रहा हूं, कांच में देखोगे तो कांच एग्जैक्टली आपको बताएगा, राइट? कांच थोड़ी बताएगा कि भाई अच्छा दिख रहा है तो अच्छा दिखाएगा, खराब दिख रहा है तो खराब दिखाएगा। परंतु उसके ऊपर धूल जमी हो और हम सोच रहे हैं कि हमारे इधर ही मिट्टी लगी है और हम मुंह बार बार पाउडर लगाते रहे हैं तो चलेगा? यू हैव टू क्लीन द मिरर बिकॉज द मिरर इज डर्टी. इफ यू क्लीन द मिरर, व्हाट यू आर, दैट मिरर विल शो यू प्रॉपर्ली. कभी कभी कांच का पीछे से ब्लैकिशनेस चला जाता है, तभी भी देखना चाहिए, वो दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है उसमें. पुराने कांच में कभी कभी होता है ना, पीछे का जो काला वो चला जाता है. So the dissection capacity of the buddhi depends on the clarity of the mirror. Just as the dust is settled on the mirror, you may not be see the objects clearly. So buddhi cannot make decisions clearly because of the dirt accumulated by the dust, which is the काम. जो desires, काम shatru, who resides in mind and intelligence, and if it forms those desires forms a whirlpool at the level of the mind, then the intelligence cannot dissect it because it is all rotating. उसमें कुछ दिखाई थोड़ी देता है. They want to see the eye of the storm, है ना? Pictures बनती है. What is there inside that makes, or if we can study that pressure, then we can see where it will weaken and fall. And that is where the satellite studies and all those are there. So within your mind now, which satellite can go and see? It's very difficult. So if a whirlpool of desires has formed into your mind, then as the wind takes out the entire water, because if that is formed on the desert, then it takes the mud. If it is same whirlpool has formed on the water, then it will take the water. And wherever it loses, it will empty everything there. It will go in force. बड़े तेज हवा के साथ जाता है, 200-250 के इसका हिसाब से जाता है. So it will go and leave there. So now this is where exactly that is the the mind, the lust making it way through the mind, and after affecting the mind reaches the buddhi in the form of the dust of that passion, or in the form of that water of that passion. And that is where today Krishna is talking about that external sense object, creating a wind of passion that drags us away. Now in the storm, in the dust, the boat, we can do something, okay? If the boat is stuck in the storm, there can be do something. It can first, they try to avoid, first, they try to control. They try to, some kind of, they try to, first they try to avoid the storms. They will get some weather forecast, or even in olden days, they used to look at the sky and understand, or there used to be some kind of personal experiences. And some technological surveys, rerouting the map, or rerouting their travel, they can do something. Or if they know we will not be able to reach to if they have harbors created with various seas, they at least camp at the harbor, fix themselves to the harbor. So they will try to first avoid. Even if the storm comes suddenly, sometimes the storms are formed suddenly, even you will not find a time to reach at the harbor also. So what will happen? The boatman will try to endure, because second option available is to endure them. At least try to control. And you will have some expert captain who knows at what tilt, if we move, we may avoid this kind of storm. At say, even olden days and nowadays also, at some tilt, at some cross degree, instead of 45 degree, keep it at 50 degree, 70 degree, whatever. So, if you move that boat, probably we will be able to save ourselves. Okay. And so best is avoidance, otherwise endurance. Otherwise, it will have to flow. Even sometimes that endurance doesn't help, and then it is nothing, but it is in a helpless condition at the mercy. It may go and drown, it may go and hit the land, anything can happen, right? Similarly, what is best for us is that, we don't allow the storm of passion to come to us. We should avoid going to such areas where we feel our passions will get ignited. We should avoid those things through which our passion, even say while eating, should get ignited, नहीं तो sugar हो जाएगी. The best probable place of the storm to come is those passion things. The place where passion could exist. When sense objects are outside and when we senses, which comes in contact with the sense objects, and then through the perception of those sense objects, the mind starts contemplating on it, and then that mind creates a gust of wild desires. A gust of desires, maybe wild or non-wild, whatever be the case. And that actually drives the intelligence. It pulls the intelligence along with us. Like the horses pulling the reins, okay? Here the horses is not even pulling the reins, but also the person also, what we spoke about the intelligence. Sometimes the intelligence, okay, if it is still in the steady mode, it will leave the reins and it will try to jump out, or somebody would come and save him. Some kind of method. But then, so just like the stormy, so this way at least way. So now it is best for us to not fall tempting to the objects at certain places where we are hurting. And if avoidance is not possible, then we should try to endure. How is that endurance possible? We should not try to avoid contact with such sense objects. We cannot close our eyes, no doubt. We cannot close our senses, no doubt. But we can avoid contemplation. We are seeing, but the contemplation should be avoided. The contemplation is avoided, then at least endurance is met. But if your contemplation is also not avoided, then you will also become irresistible to any kind of situation, and that is where endurance is also not helped and you go and fall. So best way is, that's what I said, minimizing contemplation. So the point here is that when we focus on whatever the senses are perceiving, and see, Krishna spoke of any one of the senses. If any one of the senses can drag the mind, only music. Here is speaking of all the senses. So all the senses has to be trained. How it has to be respond to that particular, or at least endure. But if you are not able to learn how endurance also, and that is where vidhyātma has come, that is where matpara has come, so many things have been come. And right from 2.42 we have been, progressively understanding how to move towards spiritual life. So as soon as we find, oh, this is tempting sense objects, first we try to, that will agitate me, then we try to minimize the contact. And try to avoid to go into our consciousness, that is break the consciousness there, contemplation. Once it gather momentum, then it will be a horrible, like a landform. So one can say by using Bhagavad Gita references that only if we are, Atma, then no problem. As the boat dies, okay, means as the boat has sunk, everybody has to go and die. So, but we are Atma. Bhagavad Gita is saying, हम तो आत्मा, हम तो मरने वाले हैं नहीं, हम तो आत्मा है, आत्मा तो कोई मरती नहीं है, होता नहीं है कुछ भी. We can say, yes, we can speak that, but how long, means you can say that he will come back, but how long will it take? Will we be able to say that? So that is troublesome, and that is what is painful. So it is best to avoid it or to endure it. That is why don't think of yourself, okay, bhai आत्मा हूं, मैं तो मरने ही वाला हूं, मैं क्या वापस आ जाऊंगा, वापस ह्यूमन शरीर मिलेगा, ये तुम्हारी क्या गारंटी है. इसीलिए एक श्रीमद् भागवतम में भी एक अच्छा श्लोक है जहाँ पे कि this human form of body is the most valuable boat and the spiritual master is the captain. Guru Karnadharam, to guide the boat, and he is guiding the boat which is on the water, ocean of nescience we call it as. The instruction of Krishna is the favorable breeze. Instructions of Krishna are the favorable breeze. One must use this facilities to cross over the oceans of nescience. Take this favorable breeze and cross that ocean of nescience, rather than be inattentive to those instructions given by Krishna and fall into the ocean of helplessness. तो बोलते ना, भव सागर पार कर लेना बेटर है, सागर में बार बार गोते खाने से बेटर है. तो है ना, इसलिए कृष्ण की एडवाइस है, गुरु इज अ कैप्टन, ह्यूमन बॉडी इज द बेस्ट व्हीकल because you see, in this body only we'll be able to make jigyasa, atato brahma jigyasa, go back home, back to Godhead through the human form of the body. That is the best. That is, I don't say the only, but that is the best valuable thing. And so just, we can use of this. There's a very nice Srimad Bhagavatam shloka, 11.20.17. This is what I have referred to. न देहम आद्यम सुलभम सुदुर्लभम प्लवम सुक्लवम गुरु कर्णधारणम मन्ये कुलेन न भाषास्वतेरितम पुमान भवदाम न तरेत न आत्मः. अदरवाइज यू आर बी क्रिएटिंग आत्मः, दैट इज आत्मा की हत्या करने वाले हो. सो दैट नाउ एक्चुअली हो गया टाइम ना. Actually, there's a flip side to it also. 2 मिनट में कंप्लीट करता हूँ. The flip side of this shloka also is there. What is the flip side of the shloka? Like, ocean of desires which kidnaps our mind. We can allow to do that. When you generate that same wind of desire towards spiritual activities. Okay. Like Vedic scriptures. So, you can, like this coming to hearing classes, singing bhajans, attending Mangalarti, taking darshan of Krishna daily from morning and evening and putting bhoga and all those. This will generate a kind of wind of spiritual desires because you are getting connected to Krishna. Because when you sit here to classes and all those, you become spiritual to Krishna. All your senses are absorbed in Krishna consciousness, nothing else. So, yan mano nuvidhīyate. So, we are not worried about the various senses getting busy elsewhere. One of the senses is occupying the mind, that is, and all other senses are subdued to it. So, yan mano nuvidhīyate, using senses we should pursue. So, in kirtan, okay, use your senses, dance. Whatever you do, that will again favorably add to your spiritual this thing. And matpara, the sense objects, the Krishna is being viewed as an object. We are doing kirtan for him, we are dancing for him, we are singing for him, we are doing harati for him, we are doing bhoga for him, and meeting devotees for him. So everywhere that concept is matpara and mano nuvidhīyate, all the senses we are accordingly absorbing. So whatever strong winds, want to propel within the mind, and whatever the intelligence it want to carry away, let that happen. At least it is much better to get attached in that position rather to fall into the pool of material, this thing. So this is the flip side of that, which will really help you out to tackle things. Isme kya pada hai? Hai na? What is the use of doing all these things? So at least when you want to be spiritual, these will add to that spiritual gust of desires. तो जितना ज्यादा, इसलिए 24 hours remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Why Prabhupada used to say कि वो ऐसे तूफान खड़ा करेंगे मन में कि बुद्धि ऑटोमेटिकली आपकी डाइवर्ट हो जाएगी, अपहरण हो जाएगा बुद्धि का. किसके लिए? कृष्ण के लिए. एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी वांट. बुद्धि इंस्टेड ऑफ गेटिंग अपहरण बाय द मटेरियल डिजायर्स, लेट इट बी अबडक्टेड बाय कृष्ण. एटलीस्ट विल रीच टू हिम. परम दृष्ट्वा क्या निवर्तन्ते नहीं, क्या था प्रभु? ना डेस्टिनेशन क्या ना डेस्टिनेशन जहाँ पहुंचना है ना, वो क्या बोलते हैं ना, गोलोक दास को बोलते हैं क्या उस समय, यू विल रीच टू दैट सुप्रीम डेस्टिनेशन विच इज मिजरी फ्री. ठीक है. लास्ट टाइम भी बोला था, यही होता है, बुद्धि इतनी हो गई हमारी व्यवसाय में, कैसे बोलते ना, डेस्टिनेशन, सुप्रीम डेस्टिनेशन को पहुंचेंगे.
Decision decides destination.
So controlling, employing the senses is, and that is where Srila Prabhupada has quoted again Ambrish Maharaj in today's, that he employed all his senses in the service of Krishna. Anything else? I thought it was connected, so मैं बोला ले लेते हैं थोड़ा, 5-10 मिनट थोड़ा ज्यादा हुआ. श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. प्रश्न है तो आप लोग मुझे